The first time it happened, I almost didn't look. My phone buzzed on the nightstand at 1:42 in the morning. One motion alert. Living room camera. I grabbed the phone, squinted at the screen, and opened the app. The room was empty, but there was a red detection box, just sitting there, midair, about chest height, right in the center of the frame. Nothing inside it, just a box, outlining something the camera believed was there. I stared at it for maybe 30 seconds, told myself it was a glitch, closed the app, went back to sleep. That was 6 weeks ago. I installed the camera system last spring. Nothing dramatic behind it. My neighbor had his car broken into twice in 2 months. Same street, same block. I figured it was smart to have something running. One camera in the living room, one covering the front door, one in the hallway outside my bedroom. Standard setup. The kind of thing you install and then forget about. For the first 2 months, nothing. The app logged motion from cars passing outside, the occasional raccoon near the porch, my cat walking through the frame at odd hours. Normal stuff. Boring stuff. Then August came. August 11th, 1:42 a.m. Motion alert. Living room. Red box. Empty room. No explanation. I checked the sensitivity settings. Didn't change anything. Figured maybe a bug in the software. August 12th, 1:42 a.m. Same alert. Same room. Same box. I sat up that second night and actually watched the footage carefully, frame by frame. The box appeared at exactly 1:42:07, held its position for about 4 seconds, then disappeared. No movement before it, no movement after, just presence. And then nothing. I called the company's support line the next morning. Guy told me it was probably a lighting issue. IR reflection, false positive from the night vision. Said to reposition the camera S lightly. I repositioned it. August 13th, 1:42 a.m. The box was back. But it had moved, closer to the hallway entrance than before. So I ran tests. Methodical ones. The kind of thing you do when you want to prove something is nothing. I left the living room light on overnight. Ceiling light, full brightness, bypassing the night vision entirely. If it was an IR artifact, visible light would kill it. 1:42 a.m. Alert. Red box. Same position as the night before, different lighting, same result. I turned the sensitivity down to its lowest setting, stayed up until 1:30 and walked slow loops. Stayed up until 1:30 and walked slow loops through the living room, deliberately triggering the system, trying to see if motion before 1:42 would somehow reset the pattern. The camera logged my movement, tracked me normally. Red box following my path the way it was supposed to. Then I went to bed, and at 1:42 it logged something else. Something that moved to a position I hadn't been near. Something the camera decided was separate from me entirely. I genuinely thought I'd fixed it once. Night 4 of testing, no alert came. I woke up at 7 a.m. and checked the log first thing. Nothing at 1:42. I actually felt relieved, embarrassed at how relieved I felt. The next night it came back, but the box was larger, as if whatever the system was measuring had moved closer to the lens. I stopped running tests after that. By week 3, I wasn't sleeping the way I used to. It wasn't dramatic, no sudden breakdown, just a slow erosion of something. I started waking up at 1:41 without an alarm. Every night. Eyes open before the buzz, just lying there in the dark, watching the ceiling, waiting for the notification I already knew was coming. My body had learned the schedule before my mind admitted there was one. At work, I'd catch myself pulling up the footage on my phone, not because I expected to find anything new. I'd already watched each clip dozens of times, but I'd sit there in the break room, earbuds in, scrubbing through the same 4 seconds of red box and empty room, like the answer might appear if I just looked one more time. I made a mistake on a report that week. Minor, but the kind I don't usually make. My manager mentioned it. I nodded and said I hadn't been sleeping great, which was true. Just not the whole story. I started noticing things I wouldn't have noticed before. Dark screens reflecting the room behind me. I'd glance at my laptop when it dimmed and find myself scanning the reflection before I caught what I was doing. I'd pause in doorways without meaning to, not because I heard something, just a half-second hesitation, like my brain wanted a moment to assess before I committed to entering. That bothered me more than the camera did. The fact that it was changing how I moved through my own home. Small things, but consistent. Here's the thing about patterns. Once your brain finds one, it can't let go. I started waking up before the alert, just lying there, watching the clock on my phone. 1:38, 1:39, 1:40. Some nights I'd have the app open, camera feed live on my screen, just waiting. And every night, without exception, at exactly 1:42 a.m., that red box appeared. Different position each time, but always moving in the same general direction, toward the bedroom. I know how that sounds, I know. But I'm not someone who jumps to conclusions. I work in IT. I understand how software behaves. I spent hours reading through detection algorithm documentation, trying to find a rational explanation. Heat signatures, electromagnetic interference, dust particles catching IR light at certain angles. All plausible, all possible. None of them quite fit. Because the box wasn't drifting randomly. It was consistent. Methodical, a few feet closer each night, and always at exactly the same time. By week 4, I rearranged the living room, moved furniture, changed the camera angle again, added a second camera in the corner for better coverage. It didn't matter. 1:42 a.m., red box, moved again. Now it was in the hallway. Captured on the hallway camera instead of the living room one. Whatever the system was tracking, it had moved with the room, not with the camera, with the space. Then, 4 days before night 31, something happened outside the pattern. 2:17 p.m., a Tuesday, full daylight. I was at work when my phone buzzed. Motion alert. Hallway camera. I opened the app assuming it was my cat. The hallway was empty. No cat, no movement. But there was a detection box, low to the ground, partially overlapping the baseboard as if the camera was tracking something pressed flat against the wall. It held for 3 seconds, disappeared. I sat in my car for 10 minutes before going back inside the office. That was the first time it had happened outside 1:42. The first time it broke its own pattern. And somehow, that was worse than anything before it. Because patterns, even strange ones, feel like boundaries, rules. When it stepped outside the rule, something in me understood that I hadn't been tracking it. It had just been letting me think I was. Night 31. I decided to stay awake, sit in the living room, have the app open on my phone and my laptop, both feeds visible. 1:40 a.m. I was on the couch, lights off, just the glow of my screens, a sea humming. Quiet neighborhood. Nothing moving. 1:41 a.m. I was watching the hallway feed when the IR sensor flickered. Same as before, 1 minute early. I switched to the living room camera, my own feed. I could see myself on screen, sitting on the couch, laptop open. 141:55. 141:58. 142:00. The red box appeared. It appeared directly behind me, on screen, on the live feed. A red detection box, hovering just over my left shoulder. I didn't move for a moment. I couldn't. I just stared at the laptop screen, watching this box sit there behind me, outlining something the camera was absolutely certain existed. I turned around. Nothing there. The room behind me was empty. Same furniture, same walls, same darkness I'd been sitting in for the past hour. I turned back to the screen. The box was still there. For 4 seconds, I watched it on screen while staring at an empty room. The camera insisted something was behind me. My eyes said otherwise. Then it disappeared. 142:11. Gone. I sat there for a long time after that, not moving, just listening to the AC, the faint creak of the building settling, my own breathing. I disabled the cameras the next morning, all of them, uninstalled the app, packed the hardware into a box, and put it in the closet. I told myself I needed to sleep, that the whole thing had gotten into my head in a way that wasn't healthy, that I'd been feeding a loop, and the only way to break it was to stop watching. That was 11 days ago. 3 nights after I disabled the system, my phone buzzed at 1:42 a.m. I picked it up, half asleep. Motion alert, living room camera. The app was uninstalled. I checked the notification log. It was there, a genuine system notification. Time-stamped 1:42 a.m. Source listed as the living room camera. From a camera that was sitting in a box in my closet. I haven't been able to explain that. I've tried. I've looked at cached data, at background processes, at every technical reason a disabled, uninstalled system might generate a ghost notification. I keep coming back to one thought. The camera was never really the point. It was a tool. And it was detecting something, nightly, patiently. Something that moved closer over weeks. Something that eventually ended up right behind me. When I disabled the cameras, I stopped seeing the detection box. I didn't stop the alerts. Which means whatever the camera was finding at 1:42 every night, it's still finding it. I'm just not watching anymore. And I don't know if that makes me safer or just less informed.
I woke up at 3:17 this morning because I felt him watching me again. Not through the glass. No, that would be too simple. Through my skin. Through my thoughts. Like his eyes were living inside my skull, pressing against the back of my eyelids every time I tried to sleep. He's been standing outside my window for 11 nights now. Always the same spot, always the same time. 3:17 in the morning, never a minute earlier, never a second late, and he never, ever moves. The first night I thought he was a shadow, some trick of the streetlight filtering through the oak tree in my front yard. God, I wish that's all he was. I pulled back the curtain just an inch, just enough to peek through, and there he was. A silhouette of a man. Tall. Too tall, maybe. His head tilted slightly to the left, like he was trying to hear something beyond the glass. Beyond me. I told myself it was nothing. A neighbor, a drunk wandering home. Maybe someone waiting for an Uber who got the address wrong. I let the curtain fall back and buried myself under the covers like a child hiding from monsters. But even with my eyes squeezed shut, I could feel him. watching, waiting, breathing in rhythm with the wind. The second night, I called the police. The officer who answered sounded bored, like I was the fifth paranoid woman who'd called that week. He said they'd send someone to check it out. 20 minutes later, I watched from behind my bedroom door as red and blue lights painted my walls. I heard voices outside, footsteps on the gravel. Then the officer knocked on my door. "There's no one out here, ma'am," he said, shining his flashlight across my yard. "No footprints, no signs of disturbance. You sure you saw someone?" I looked past him, toward the spot where the man had been standing. The grass was undisturbed, perfect, like nothing had ever touched it. But I'd seen him. I know I did. Night 3, I bought a security camera, one of those fancy ones that sends alerts to your phone whenever it detects motion. I felt so smart, so prepared. I mounted it above my window, angled it perfectly at the spot where he always stood. Then I went to bed feeling safer than I had in days. At 3:17, my phone buzzed. Motion detected. My heart hammered against my ribs as I opened the app, hands trembling so badly I almost dropped the phone. The screen loaded, and there he was, standing in the exact same spot. But the camera couldn't see his face. Where his features should have been, there was just darkness. Not shadow, not a blur, just an absence. Like someone had cut a hole in reality and pasted it over his head. His body was there, his clothes, his hands hanging at his sides, but his face was a void. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat in my living room with every light on, clutching a kitchen knife I knew wouldn't help if he somehow got inside. When the sun finally rose, I checked the footage again. 30 seconds after appearing on camera, he was gone. No movement, no walking away. One frame, he was there. The next frame, he wasn't. By night 7, I had stopped trying to understand it. I just wanted it to stop. I nailed blankets over every window, hung sheets behind those, duct taped the edges so not even a sliver of outside could peek through. My apartment became a tomb, dark, airless. Safe, I told myself. He can't watch if he can't see in. 3:17 came. I sat in my bed in the pitch black, listening, waiting. Nothing. No presence, no weight of invisible eyes. I almost cried with relief. Maybe covering the windows worked. Maybe he needed to see me to whatever he was doing. I actually smiled. God, I smiled. Then I heard it. Breathing. Right outside my bedroom door. Inside my apartment. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My throat had closed up, every muscle in my body frozen solid. The breathing continued, slow, measured. And then he spoke. "You can't hide from me by hiding from yourself." His voice wasn't scary. That's what terrified me most. It was gentle, almost kind, like a parent tucking a child into bed. But the words, they didn't make sense. Hide from myself? What did that even mean? I didn't answer. I didn't move. I barely let myself breathe. After what felt like hours, the presence faded. When dawn finally came, I checked every door, every window. All locked, all sealed, nothing disturbed. He'd been inside my home, and there was no trace of how he'd gotten in. Night 9. I decided to confront him. I know how that sounds, but I couldn't live like this anymore. Couldn't sleep, could barely eat. My boss was calling, asking why I hadn't shown up to work. My sister stopped by, and I wouldn't let her in because I was too afraid he'd hurt her if she got involved. I was disappearing, becoming a ghost in my own life. So at 3:15, I stood at my window. Curtains open, lights off, waiting. My reflection stared back at me in the dark glass, and I looked hollow, like something had been scooped out of me over the past 9 nights. At exactly 3:17 he appeared, but this time I really looked at him, and my blood turned to ice. The way he stood, the slight tilt of his head, the height, the build. I raised my hand slowly, my palm facing the window. He raised his hand too, a mirror image. My breath fogged the glass as understanding crashed over me like a wave of ice water. It wasn't a man standing outside my window. It was me. But not me. Something wearing my shape. Something that had been watching me, studying me, learning how to be me. Every night getting closer. Every night becoming more solid, more real. And I was getting less. I stumbled backward, my hand dropping to my side. But the figure in the window didn't move. It just stood there, hands still raised, head tilted, waiting for me to copy it, not the other way around. That's when I understood what he meant. You can't hide from me by hiding from yourself. I wasn't being haunted. I was being replaced. Tonight is night 12. I'm not at my apartment anymore. I'm staying with my sister, though I haven't told her why. I can't. How do you explain that something is stealing your existence one night at a time? That somewhere out there, a copy of you is getting stronger while you fade away? But here's what really terrifies me. This afternoon, I caught my reflection in a mirror, and just for a second, just for the briefest moment, my reflection tilted its head to the left, and I hadn't moved at all. I don't know how much time I have left. I don't know which one of us is real anymore. Maybe I never did. Maybe I've been the one standing outside my own window all along, watching myself disappear. If you see me standing outside your window tonight, at 3:17, don't look too closely at my face. You might recognize it.
I think someone is living inside my walls. 3 scratches. Then 3 more. I've been counting. Every night. Same pattern, same wall, same hour. 11:53. I don't know why I started writing it down. Maybe because I thought if I looked at it on paper, it would seem less like what I was starting to think it was. It still does. Seem like something. It started about 6 weeks ago. I'd just moved into the apartment. 3rd floor, corner unit, older building, the kind with thick plaster walls and baseboards that don't quite meet the floor anymore. The landlord called it character. I called it a good price. The first night, I heard something in the wall behind my bed, a shifting, like insulation settling or a pipe contracting in the cold. I didn't think much of it. Old buildings make noise. That's just what they do. The second night, same wall, same general area, a soft, rhythmic movement. I told myself, rats. Rats were the obvious answer, unpleasant but explainable. I made a note to call the building super in the morning. But here's the thing about rats. They're erratic. They don't follow a schedule. They don't stop at exactly 11:53 and then go quiet for the rest of the night. Whatever was in my wall did. I called the super anyway. He came, looked at the baseboard, pressed on a few sections of drywall, and said he didn't see any evidence of a nest. No droppings, no gnaw marks. He shrugged and said it was probably the heating system. I wanted to believe him. For about 2 weeks, I almost did. The sounds were still there. That same 3-scratch rhythm, always at the same time. But I started sleeping through it. You can normalize almost anything if you're tired enough. Then I noticed something else. My coffee. I drink 1 cup in the morning. I fill the machine with exactly enough water for 1 cup the night before, so it's ready when I wake up. It's a habit, a small, specific habit that I've had for years. One morning, the pot held more water than I'd put in. Not a lot, maybe 50 milliliters. But I know that machine. I know exactly what the water line looks like at 1 cup. This was higher. I stood there in my kitchen for longer than I should have, staring at it. I told myself I'd miscounted, that I'd been distracted, that it meant nothing. I started measuring. Over the next week, I found other things. Small things. A chair pulled 2 inches from where I'd left it. The bathroom window latch in the open position when I was certain I'd closed it. My phone charger on the left side of my nightstand instead of the right. None of it was proof. All of it could be explained. I was aware of how this looked. I'm a rational person. I work in logistics. I deal in patterns and data, and I know the difference between signal and noise. But the patterns were stacking. I started taking photos. Every morning before I left for work, the position of every chair, every window, every object I used frequently. I told myself it was just to rule things out, to give myself peace of mind. What it gave me was evidence. 3 weeks in, comparing photos side by side, I could see it clearly. Things were being moved at night and returned to nearly, but not exactly, their original positions before morning. Whoever was doing it was careful, but not careful enough. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in the dark in my living room with my back against the far wall, and I listened. And at 11:53, right on schedule, 3 scratches, a pause, 3 more. From inside the wall behind my bedroom. From inside. I got up. I went to that wall. I pressed my palm flat against the plaster and I stood there, not moving. The scratching had stopped, but I could feel, just barely, a faint vibration, like something settling its weight. I found the hole 4 days later. I wouldn't have seen it if I hadn't been moving the bed frame to vacuum underneath. It was behind the headboard, about 3 feet up from the floor. Small, maybe the diameter of a finger. Clean edges, not crumbling plaster. This had been drilled from the other side. I got a flashlight and looked through it. I couldn't see much. Darkness, the smell of dry wood, and something else I didn't want to name. But the angle of the hole, whoever drilled it could see directly into my room. Not the wall, not the corner, my bed. I want to be clear about something. At this point, I still hadn't told anyone, not because I wasn't scared, but because I knew how it would sound. Paranoid, unhinged. I needed something concrete before I went to the police, or I'd be the problem in this story. So I kept watching, and I found out what I needed to know. There is a utility corridor that runs along the north side of this building. It's old infrastructure, mostly sealed off, used for access to the original pipe system. According to the building's original plans, which I found at the county records office, it connects to a crawl space that runs behind 4 units on my floor, including mine. The access panel for my unit is inside my bedroom closet, behind the hanging rod. I'd seen it before and thought nothing of it. Just a maintenance panel, standard. The screws are on my side. But when I examined them last Tuesday, 2 of the 4 had been backed out and reset. The paint seal around the edge of the panel had been broken and resealed with something clear. Careful work. Patient work. Someone had been using that panel as a door. I moved out of the bedroom that night. I've been sleeping on the couch near the front door with my keys in my hand. I've set small pieces of tape across the closet door at ankle height, invisible unless you know to look. I go to bed at 10 now. I am usually awake by 11:45. I watch the closet door. I haven't gone to the police yet. I know that sounds irrational. But I've started thinking about the timeline, about how long this has been happening, and what that means. 6 weeks that I know of. Maybe longer before I moved in. This person knows my schedule. They know when I leave and when I return. They know which side of the nightstand I charge my phone on. They know exactly how much water I use for coffee in the morning. They know what I look like when I sleep. 2 nights ago, I found something in the bathroom. On the inside lip of the tub, just under the faucet, a partial boot print. Small, narrow, damp. I hadn't showered since the morning. That's when I understood the difference between what I thought was happening and what was actually happening. I thought they were in the walls. I thought the panel was their entry point into the apartment, but that boot print wasn't near the closet. It was on the opposite side of the apartment. There's another way in. I haven't found it yet. I've been sitting here for the last hour with every light on, typing this out. Not because I expect it to help, more because I needed to say it somewhere, to someone. It's 11:49 right now. I should call the police. I know that. I've known it for days. I keep telling myself I'll do it in the morning when I can think clearly and explain it calmly, when I have everything organized, when I have all the photos pulled up and the building plans printed and the hole in the wall documented. In the morning. It's 11:52. 3 scratches just came from the wall behind my bedroom. And then 3 more. But I'm not in my bedroom.